The Galactic Dominion had experienced numerous battles, yet this particular one stood out. For the first time in a millennium, a species had chosen not to surrender. The Dominion had successfully conquered hundreds of worlds, obliterated empires, and erased civilizations from existence with their overwhelming might. Their war fleets numbered in the millions, and their technology was centuries ahead of most. Typically, no one resisted for long. However, humanity was different. When the Dominion reached the outskirts of human space, they issued their standard ultimatum: surrender and become a vassal or face annihilation. Most species, confronted with the Dominion's power, capitulated immediately. The humans, however, did not. Their response was peculiar. There were no frantic negotiations or pleas for mercy, just a single transmission acknowledging the ultimatum. That was all. No threats, no begging, merely acknowledgement. The Dominion's War Council laughed, dismissing the humans as another primitive race too proud to recognize their position. The invasion fleet, comprising 50,000 ships, advanced, anticipating an effortless conquest. Upon reaching the first human colony, they encountered unexpected resistance. Primitive railguns and nuclear warheads were deployed, but nothing could halt their advance. The colony fell within hours. The second colony, however, took longer, days instead of hours. The humans fought with greater tenacity than anticipated, their weapons inflicting more damage than expected. By the time the Dominion arrived at Earth, they anticipated facing a desperate and broken species. Instead, Earth's defenses were fully prepared. Initially, the humans dispatched just one ship. The Dominion assumed it was a mistake, a solitary vessel approaching the core of their fleet, barely registering on their sensors. Its power output was laughable when compared to their dreadnoughts. Admiral Zral observed the tactical display with amusement. They believe that one ship can save them? His officers chuckled, knowing that the Dominion fleet numbered in the tens of thousands, while the human ship was merely a speck in comparison. Then, the speck moved. It did not engage in standard attack patterns, nor did it attempt to dodge, run, or negotiate. Instead, it accelerated directly toward the Dominion flagship. Initially, they assumed it was a ramming attempt, primitive and desperate. However, the Dominion's shields flickered and systems began to shut down. Then, the real horror began. The ship was not firing weapons, it was the weapon. Admiral Zill barely had time to react before his fleet's communications were flooded with screams. Something was occurring. Ships were going dark, and crews were being erased, not killed, but simply gone. The human ship continued its advance, slicing through the fleet like a knife through flesh. The Dominion had dispatched 50,000 ships, and within minutes, only silence remained. The lone human ship transmitted one final message before vanishing from sensors. It acknowledged that the war was over. Panic spread through the Dominion's high command. 50,000 ships had vanished, not destroyed in battle, nor crippled in a last stand, but gone. Sensors had recorded no debris, no wreckage, nothing but an empty void where the fleet had once existed. The news spread like wildfire across the empire, as billions of citizens, conditioned to believe in the Dominion's invincibility, whispered in fear. Military strategists and scientists reviewed the data repeatedly, unable to explain what had transpired. Admiral Zill was dead, as was his entire command. There were no escape pods, no distress signals. Signals, merely silence. The solitary human vessel had disappeared, following its last transmission. It was acknowledged that the Dominion had encountered resistance previously, yet nothing of this magnitude. This was not merely a defeat, it was our. The most troubling aspect was their complete ignorance of how the humans had achieved this. Emperor Voron Cha stood in the expansive throne chamber of the capital world, his imposing figure emanating a palpable sense of unease. His advisors murmured in low tones, attempting to piece together a coherent explanation. "We must retaliate at once," one of the warlords growled. "Deploy everything we possess. We will reduce their worlds to ashes." "Fool," hissed a strategist. "Do you wish to send another fleet when we lack understanding of what transpired with the first? They did not engage our forces. They unmade them." The room descended into silence. That was the true terror of the situation. The Dominion's fleets were engineered for protracted warfare, capable of enduring millions of losses yet still overwhelming their foes through sheer numbers. However, there were no losses, only emptiness. The Emperor turned to his chief intelligence officer, a slender, calculating figure with piercing golden eyes. "Do we have any insight into what that ship was?" The officer paused before responding. "Not entirely, my lord, but we did intercept something." A screen flickered to life, revealing the final moments of the battle from a Dominion scout ship that had been too distant from the main fleet to be impacted. The human vessel, a sleek and unremarkable construct in comparison to the massive dreadnoughts of the Dominion, moved with eerie precision. Then, as it sliced through the fleet, something shifted. The footage slowed, zooming in for a fraction. A peculiar distortion rippled around the ship. Space itself appeared to bend in an unnatural manner. Then, the Dominion ships simply vanished. The officer's voice was tense. Whatever technology they employed was not conventional. We detected no energy spikes or weapon signatures. It was as if they had completely bypassed the laws of physics. A shudder coursed through the gathered warlords and strategists. The Emperor narrowed his eyes and inquired, "Where is the ship now?" After a lengthy pause, the response came, "It's gone, my lord. No trace." For the first time in Dominion history, fear infiltrated the Emperor's voice. "Find them," he commanded. "Determine what they are, and for the love of the stars, do not provoke them again." But it was already too late, for while the Dominion deliberated their next course of action, the humans had dispatched another message, a single transmission echoing across every Dominion channel, just 2 words: "Still watching." The Dominion's paranoia spread like wildfire. Entire fleets were recalled from the outer systems, warships were fortified, and research stations operated around the clock, desperately attempting to decipher what had transpired. Yet, no matter how thoroughly they analyzed the data, no explanation seemed plausible. The humans had erased 50,000 ships without a trace, and now they were observing. For the first time in its 1,000-year reign, the Dominion was gripped by fear. On the Dominion's most classified research world, Zeros 9, the brightest minds endeavored to unravel the mystery of the human ship. Every scrap of sensor data, every intercepted transmission, and every theoretical analysis was scrutinized. One thing became evident: the ship had not employed conventional weaponry. No energy discharges, no projectile impacts, nothing detectable. The only clue was the portion visible in the footage. "It wasn't a weapon," whispered Dr. Calter, one of the leading Dominion scientists, his tendrils twitching nervously as he gazed at the screen. "It was something else, something more fundamental." "Explain," barked General Vorin, who stood impatiently behind him. Calter hesitated before continuing. "Our ships didn't explode. They didn't. When they suffered structural failure, they simply ceased to exist, as if reality itself had rewritten itself to eliminate them." Venn scoffed, deeming it impossible, a notion that contradicts every known law of physics. Calter turned slowly, his eyes dark, and suggested, "Perhaps we must accept that the humans understand laws we do not." The word sent a chill through the room. For centuries, the Dominion had considered itself the pinnacle of intelligence, the masters of the galaxy. But what if the humans were not merely another upstart species? What if they were something entirely different? While scientists scrambled for answers, the Dominion's intelligence network concentrated on a more urgent mission, locating the humans' homeworld. They were already aware of Earth, classified as a Category 3 civilization, advanced, yet not at the galactic tier. Their technology fell far short of Dominion standards. They possessed no known superweapons, no reality-bending ships, and nothing capable of the events that had transpired. So from where had that one ship originated? Agents scoured every hidden relay, decrypted every human transmission, infiltrated their networks, and found nothing. No mention of an experimental warship, no evidence of unknown weapons, and no signs that humanity even comprehended what had occurred. Their news networks operated as usual, their military forces remained in standard positions, and their civilian population lived in blissful ignorance. It was as if humanity itself had no awareness of the events that had unfolded. But if they were not responsible, then who was? As the Dominion wrestled with their fears, another transmission arrived, distinct from the first. This one originated from a specific location, the very edge of Dominion space. The message was straightforward. One ship was sufficient. Do not compel us to send more. Another message contained coordinates. It posed a challenge, a test of Dominion. The Emperor hesitated as his warlords sought vengeance while his strategists urged caution. Ultimately, he reached a decision. They would dispatch a fleet, not a massive armada this time, but rather 1,000 ships. This would serve as a warning, a demonstration of strength, and if the humans refused to clarify their actions, the fleet would compel them to do so. The ships departed within the hour, traversing warp space towards the specified coordinates. Every soldier, every officer, every commander aboard understood they were venturing into the unknown, yet none realized they would never be seen again. The fleet arrived at the assigned coordinates, a stretch of empty space at the furthest edge of Dominion-controlled territory. No planets, no moons, no stations, merely the abyss of the void. It was a trap, but for whom? Admiral Jarth Kren, commanding the 1,000-ship fleet, gazed at the tactical display. No enemy vessels, no anomalies, nothing. Yet, unease crept up his spine. One ship was sufficient. Do not make us send another. The words reverberated in his mind. He had previously dismissed them as psychological warfare. Now, as silence enveloped him, he was uncertain. Full scan, he commanded. If the humans believe we will be intimidated by empty space, they are mistaken. His officers complied, the sensors sweeping the void, examining every wavelength, every anomaly. Nothing. No cloaked ships, no hidden beacons, no mines, no drones, no gravitational disturbances. Then the lights flickered. Admiral Kryn turned sharply. What was that? The comms officer checked his instruments. Minor power fluctuation, sir. No cause was detected. Kren was displeased that the Dominion's warships had been constructed to perfection. Malfunctions were not mere accidents. He confirmed that all systems were stable. The officer's mandibles clicked nervously as he conducted the diagnostics. Before he could respond, a second fluctuation rocked the ship, this time affecting multiple vessels. A cold dread settled in Kren's gut. Something was present, something unseen. Then the screaming began. "Sir, we are losing contact with multiple ships." Kren turned to the tactical display, where icons flickered, some vanishing entirely. There were no explosions, no distress calls, just gone. "Are they cloaking?" he demanded. "No, sir," the comms officer hesitated, his voice trembling. "They are just disappearing." That word again, disappearing. Kren's claws tightened around the command chair. "Full retreat now." The officer looked stunned. "We haven't even. Now, damn you!" The fleet attempted to turn. Engines roared, warp drive spun up, but it was too late. Space itself seemed to shudder. Kren's eyes widened as he perceived it, something moving in the void, not a ship, not a fleet, but a presence, a ripple in the universe. Then the voices came, not through the calls, not through sound, but directly into their minds. You were warned. The Dominion fleet has ceased to exist. The Emperor awaited news of his fleet's inevitable victory. A display screen tracked the 1,000 ships, and then, in the blink of an eye, every single icon vanished. Gasps filled the chamber as warlords, strategists, and scientists all stared in horror. "No," one of them whispered. The Emperor rose slowly, his massive form trembling. "Tell me this is a mistake." But there was no mistake. The only thing What remained on the screen was a new transmission, a final message from the void. 2 words: final warning. Silence enveloped the Dominion for the first time in its history. They had faced something more powerful than themselves and found themselves utterly powerless. Panic spread like wildfire through the upper echelons of the Dominion. The fleet had disappeared. No wreckage, no survivors, no escape pods. 1,000 warships, the pride of the Empire, had been obliterated from existence. And now, a message loomed over them like an executioner's blade. Final warning. Emperor Vorinchel's massive form quivered as he read the words. His warlords and strategists remained deathly silent, their arrogance shattered. "What do we do?" one of the ministers finally croaked. For the first time in 1,000 years, no one had an answer. They had governed the galaxy through sheer strength. Their fleets were invincible, their empire untouchable. Yet humanity, or whatever force lay behind it, had rewritten the rules. The Dominion was no longer the apex predator. It had become prey. 3 days later, the Emperor did something no Dominion ruler had ever attempted. He sent a message of surrender. Not a declaration of war, nor a demand for negotiation. Just 4 words broadcast into the void. "We do not resist." They waited. Hours passed, then days. Each moment stretched their paranoia to its breaking point. Had they been too late? Would the next sign from humanity be another erasure? Then, finally, a response came. Not through a transmission, nor through comms, but across every Dominion star system simultaneously. Every screen, every console, every display. The same message was hijacked, appearing as if it had been inscribed directly into the very fabric of reality. It was acknowledged that there were no demands, no punishment, only that single chilling word. With it, the Dominion understood that humanity had opted for mercy, or perhaps they simply no longer deemed the Dominion worthy of their attention. The Dominion never recovered. They did not dispatch another fleet beyond their borders, nor did they expand again. Their once mighty empire contracted within itself, crippled by fear. To the outside galaxy, the Dominion still appeared powerful and dominant, but those within recognized the truth. They were no longer conquerors. They had become survivors. Every night, every Dominion citizen, every warlord, and every emperor that followed would gaze into the dark void of space, aware that something was watching them. Something that had obliterated 50,000 ships without a trace. Something that had issued a final warning. If they ever dared to cross that line again, there would be no mercy. As time passed, years turned into decades, and the Dominion, once the most feared power in the galaxy, became stagnant. Their war fleets, once instruments of terror, now patrolled their own borders like caged beasts. Expansion ceased, conquests ended, and fear reshaped their empire. No one spoke of the humans anymore, neither in public nor in private. Their name had become a phantom, whispered in hushed tones, feared but never acknowledged. However, fear alone was insufficient to maintain an empire. Dissension grew within the Dominion. Some believed they had surrendered too hastily, that their fear had blinded them, while others thought they had narrowly escaped annihilation by sheer luck. Fortune smiled upon some, while others murmured of a far graver truth, that humanity had never truly been the adversary. Deep within the intelligence archives of the Dominion, an encrypted file had remained dormant for decades, the final transmission from Admiral Ken's fleet. This document had been classified at the utmost level, sealed under the direct orders of the Emperor himself. However, in moments of vulnerability, secrets tend to seep through the smallest of fissures. A young and ambitious scientist succeeded in breaching the file's security. She anticipated uncovering sensor data, battle footage, or any information that could elucidate the disappearance. Instead, she encountered a message that was neither from humans nor from any recognized language in the galaxy. It was something entirely different, something ancient. A voice, cold and alien, resonated in a symphony of overlapping echoes. The translation software struggled to interpret it, yet the essence was unmistakable. The boundary had been tested, the line had been crossed, and the consequence had been exacted. Then came a final phrase, a warning. They are not your doors to challenge. The scientist scarcely had time to grasp the implications of her findings before her access was revoked. Within hours, she was removed from her residence and was never seen again. The humans had not engaged them in battle. They had not constructed a superweapon, nor had they deployed any unfathomable technology. They had not even comprehended the events that had transpired. Something else had intervened, something older than the Dominion, older than humanity itself, something that observed, and humanity, whether aware or not, was under its guardianship. The Dominion had not been vanquished, they had been cautioned away. And in the shadowy recesses of the galaxy, where no empire dared to extend its reach, something began to stir once more, for the boundary had been tested, and the next consequence might not be one of mercy.